Looks like we're live. I'm going to channel my inner Chad Jensen and say we're going to let it breathe for a moment while we welcome all of the different platforms, all of the different streaming services. Got Facebook. Looks like we're good. Twitter. And welcome in everybody to a special solo edition of the Mile High Huddle podcast. I am one half of your football priest, Zack Kelberman, sitting in by myself today. Chad Jensen is, I believe he's traveling for the holiday weekend. So Boss Man deserves some time off every now and then. It's all good. It's going to be a pretty, I say, fast-paced episode of the MHH pod. I'm excited to get into it tonight. The last podcast before the Broncos begin practicing in earnest for their week one of the regular season. It's crazy how fast it came already. Week one matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to give it a second, like I said, to let the stream warm up, let y'all get in. Again, it might be a slower night. We might not be on for 45 minutes or an hour, depending on the activity. You guys are out enjoying yourselves, family, friends, all that. So we definitely want to encourage that. But we appreciate anyone tuning in with us tonight for sure. Dylan Von Arks, the moderator, checking in, saying, "Sup, Broncos country." Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you don't take it from me, take it from DVA. He knows what he's talking about. Make sure you can help us out if you haven't done so already. Let's hit this super. Yeah, appreciate it, Scott. We have Scott in the background tonight. Thankfully, I thought I was going to be totally solo. I'm not. He's going to be a big help for me. So we'll get right into it. Wolfie Malott, $15 super. Thank you so much, Wolfie. Asking one more day closer. I can smell the field from here. Go Broncos. As always, good to be here on this wonderful Sunday evening. Hashtag DB4L, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Buckham. Yeah, one day closer, and it's crazy. We were just talking about the Sean Payton hire. Then we were talking about the combine, and then free agency, and then the draft, and then OTAs, and then preseason, and it just flies. It seemed like a really long offseason, and it was, but we're finally here now. We made it. Broncos begin practicing for Vegas tomorrow, and then 1 week from tonight. 1 week from tonight, we'll be doing the Gut Reaction podcast following that game and be celebrating a Broncos win, snapping that streak for sure. David McElrath, $5 super. Good to see you as always, David. And he goes, "Good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 12 and 5. Hashtag Buckham ×3. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life." Yes, sir. Good. Again, good as always to see you, David. Appreciate all that you do. And you as well, Michael Ronquillo, as Chad says, the Ronk chiming in. Good evening, Zach, on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Absolutely, Michael. Definitely. Well, we're going to have an interesting podcast tonight for sure. I want to see, I saw some nice comments here. Zeus, I was going to pull that up. Thank you, Scott. Zeus McPeak. Zeus chiming in. That feels good to do solo. $20 super. Thank you so much, Stu. Go Broncos. Let's start the season right by beating the Raiders. Yes, that would set the tone for the entire year. You are 100% correct, Stu. You can't hire Sean Payton and vow that he's going to turn Russ around, make all these big-time moves, and then come out at home and lose another game to Josh McDaniels and the Vegas Raiders. They have to get that dub. And I think, yesterday it was the Colorado Buffalo starting off with a dub. The Broncos, I think, will be following suit and starting off with a victory 1-0 this time next Sunday. Thank you again, Stu. What else? We got Jasmine. Thank you so much, Jasmine. 1999 super. It's good to see you as always, representing the female demographic of the podcast. Jasmine says, "What's up? Hoping for some of that Buffs magic rubs off on the Broncos." Yeah, great minds, Jasmine. I had that tweet yesterday. I kind of feel the same way today. There's no reason why. I kind of look at it the same. Like the Colorado program, they brought in a big name head coach in Deion Sanders. There was so much hype surrounding them, and by association, expectations that they better win these games because of that hype. And they started off really strong. Deion's son looks like a freaking superstar in the making, a future NFL star for sure. And I think the Broncos, going back to my original point, we're going to be saying the same thing about them this time next week. Good to see you, Jasmine. Thank you. Mike Duran hopping in. Been crunching my lines. Came up with this final score prediction for Mike Duran. Ready, guys? Broncos 119 and Wimps 0. I will take that all day, every day. Listen, if it's 118-0, I'm not going to pick too many nits. I still be pretty happy. But in all seriousness, it'd be great to get a blowout victory, a resounding victory, leave no doubt. But again, I said this the other day. I still stand true to it for any game. I don't care if it's 3-2. I don't care if it's 30-0. As long as the Broncos get that dub, I'll be a happy podcaster. Thank you, though, Mike. What else? William Hayes. Good to see you, William. Another podcast says Broncos might be 2-2 after 4 games. What do you say, Zach? Let's not rearrange. Let's pull up and refresh the Broncos' first 4 games if we could. Obviously, they start out with the Vegas Raiders in week 1. Then they stay home to face Washington in week 2. They go to Miami in week 3. Early afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern game, could be tough. And then the Bears at Chicago at 1 o'clock the following week. 2-2 is a fair prediction. I would say if they predicted 1-3, it might be taking more of a skeptical or pessimistic take, but 2-2 is fair. I mean, the Broncos haven't beaten the Raiders in 3 years. The Dolphins are going to be a challenge, and any game where it's a 1 o'clock start for Denver historically has been tough for them. Chicago is not going to be a slouch. Justin Fields, I think, will take a step forward as a passer, as a quarterback. Their offense should be improved. That game I see as a Broncos win, but that's why they play the game any given Sunday. I think 3-1 is not a homer prediction, but an objective one and a fairly realistic one for Denver. If they're all they're cracked up to be, we don't know what the final product is going to look like because so many moving parts are still in route, the offensive line, to an extent, the wide receiver group. We don't know what they're going to look like come week 18. But in the first quarter of the season, if the Broncos want to be the playoff team that Sean Payton, fancies them to be, you got to beat the opponents in front of you that you should beat. And there's no reason on paper the Broncos shouldn't beat the Raiders, shouldn't beat the Commanders, and shouldn't beat Chicago. I'll give Miami that victory, just in the sake of realism. 3-1 would be a good start for Denver after the first quarter. Mark McDonald, big stars, big stars. Thank you so much, Mark. As always, McDonald had many stars for us on the MHH podcast. Evening, Zach and Broncos country. Can't wait to beat Faders week 1 and get rolling on a good note. Go Broncos. Yeah, again, I mean, it's such an imperative season, obviously, for Russell Wilson, for Sean Payton, for George Payton, for the Broncos ownership group. And what better way to get the ball rolling, as you talked about, Mark, and get that solid footing toward being a playoff team again than beating up on Josh McDaniels and a Raiders team that you haven't conquered in quite some time. So it would definitely set the tone for the entire year. It would give them a big jump start. That would be the ideal. But I will say if they do lose this game similar to last season against Seattle, it wouldn't be over. They're not going to pack things up and, see you next spring. They would have a lot of football left to be played, but we all want the Broncos to come out strong for sure. Any other? Oh, David Bishop. Thank you, David. Zach, can you please explain what 3 technique, 5 technique means? Heard it for years, but don't understand it. Pretty much, there are fancy ways of saying defensive lineman in terms of tackles, like nose tackles, defensive tackle, and defensive end. So 5 technique usually is the defensive end that lines up outside of the tackle. So that would be your traditional Shelby Harris or your Zach Allen or your Draymond Jones that the Broncos had in the past, don't have anymore. That would be your 5 technique. 3 technique would be more along the lines of a Mike Purcell, DJ Jones, big body guys. There's 1 technique like true big Sylvester Williams, pure run stuffers. There's 2 technique, 3 technique, but basically 5 plays along the tackle, and the 3 usually plays over the guard or the center, depending on the alignment. Hope that helped a little bit, David. Quentin Caldwell, appreciate you so much. And I feel like it's a fairly new name. I might be wrong, but we get so many great, amazing listeners. It's tough to keep track of everyone. But if you are new, Quentin, welcome. Definitely appreciate the super. Quentin says, hey, everyone, let's get that win. Definitely need it. Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to really understate how important the week 1 game is for Denver. All games are important, but to start off the season at home and to do so against your division rival, an AFC opponent who you haven't beaten in a few seasons, it's just the impetus that Denver needs to start that hopeful playoff campaign. So I'm right there with you, Quentin. Thank you again. All right, so I'm gonna go through. I see some comments talking about the first four prediction. What do you guys think? I want to know. VIP Lewis says first four 4-0. I mean, if they play good ball and they are what we think they can be, I can. That's not unrealistic. That's not out of bounds at all. But I'll say 3-1 for the sake of objectivity. Um, Scott explains it pretty well here for further clarification about the defensive lineman. A 0 technique is right over the center. The farther away from the ball, the bigger the number. 7 is way, way out wide, like in the wide 9, old school defensive fronts. That's where the 7 tech would be. So I hope that helps to the, I think it was David who asked about that. Seth says 3-1 at the very best. I'm right there with you, Seth. I could see 2-2 if they struggle, or God forbid another injury takes hold. I could see 2-2. 3-1 would be a best case scenario. That Miami game with Tua and that Miami Heat early afternoon is going to be difficult. Ernie Mays, good to see you, Ernie. Says first 4 games 4-0. I would expect nothing less from you, Ernie, than a 4-0 prediction for the first quarter, but we'll see. I can, again, if they play good ball, if they are reaching their potential, there's no reason why they can't start off with that record. Brandon Williams says 3-1 or 2-2. David McElrath says 3-1. Quentin says 3-1. So I can, and also Eric Hung. I probably completely butchered that. I'm so sorry, Eric. I'll just stick to your first name. 3-1 seems a fair expectation, but ideally, I think we can even beat Miami. Yeah, I mean, Miami is no superpower. They're definitely a beatable team, but I worry about the Broncos flying all the way to the West Coast. That Miami Heat, man, is no freaking joke. You can practice outside in Denver, but nothing really prepares you for 90 plus degrees and 80+% humidity for 3 hours. It's going to be a tough matchup for Denver. No question about that. Dan Wilkett, Denver Broncos never win in Miami in September, and the Heat never win. Tons of heat cramps and injuries. Yeah, again, traditionally, these early afternoon West Coast games, especially in very humid or hot environments, don't jibe and coalesce with Denver over the years very well. Maybe under Sean Payton, that's different, and we'll see a full tide turning, but I'm kind of leaving that possibility open that if they were to go 3-1 in the first 4 games, that loss would come against the Dolphins. But we'll see. We'll see. Absolutely, for sure. And EDJ says, I have to see it in the wash first, Zach. Yeah, I definitely understand that. You guys don't want to render predictions until you see the finished product, or at least the first game, first couple snaps of what the Broncos could be. So I'm right there with you, EDJ. But again, they should be no worse than 2-2 over the first 4. All right, so I think I'm going to get into the podcast topic for this evening. I kind of centered it around setting the table for the Broncos Week 1 game against the Raiders. And because the Broncos haven't had much news, haven't had any practice since Thursday or Friday, in preparation of Vegas, not much going on. So I kind of wanted to take this opportunity solo, give my opinion on what the Broncos need to do to take down the Raiders and end that God-forsaken streak. So number 1, it starts on defense for Denver, and it's the obvious. And if you've seen any Broncos-Raiders matchup in the last couple seasons, you would know what I'm about to say. The number 1, the biggest key to victory for September 10th is stopping Josh Jacobs. Number 1. If you have to sell out on defense to do so, fine. If you want to load up the box and make Jimmy G beat you and go over the top and put it on his shoulders, fine. But you cannot allow Josh Jacobs to run roughshod on snap after snap after snap like he's done against Denver historically. He's been a Broncos killer. He had 3 touchdowns total against them last season, and I think upwards of 200 rushing yards. The guy is a beast, but he turns it up more so against Denver for whatever reason. So number 1, yes, get your big body linebackers, get your safeties in the box, Kareem Jackson, get Drew Sanders on the field, Zach Allen, let him beast, DJ Jones, get everyone possible near the line of scrimmage and sell out to stop Josh Jacobs. I'm not scared of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Patrick Surtain can hold down Devontae Adams as much as possible in single coverage if it came to that. They don't have Darren Waller anymore to hurt the Broncos. Number 1 for sure is stop Josh Jacobs. And I see a couple people in the side chat agree. It's the obvious, guys, the low-hanging fruit. It starts with number 28 and stopping him. on the ground. Number two, it starts with the Broncos offense. We're flipping sides of the ball here. You got to stop one player. I think he's 98, right? Max Crosby. Again, no introduction needed. If you've watched a Broncos game the last couple seasons, you know how much of a game wrecker Max Crosby has been. He turns it up against Denver. Not surprising. He's a really good player, but not good juju. Not good juju. Not only is he sacking the Broncos quarterbacks, he's injuring the Broncos running backs a la Pookie Williams. Double team him. You hope McGlinchey is back healthy and good to go. You hope Garrett Bowles, if he's lined up opposite him, and you can bet your bottom dollar that the Raiders coaching staff will find a way to match up Max Crosby on Garrett Bowles one-on-one or Ben Powers one-on-one. Ben Powers, who struggled in the preseason in pass protection, by the way. So double team, chip block, triple team, I don't care. You sell out on offense as an offensive line to stop Max Crosby. And here's our wonderful producer, Scott, dropping the stats. Max Crosby has 11 and a half sacks against the Broncos. His highest against any other team is 4. To give you an indication of how much this guy just turns up when he faces the blue and orange, there it is, courtesy of our producer, Scott Kennedy. So again, double team him, triple team him, put 4 blockers on him. I don't care. You cannot allow Max Crosby to wreck the Broncos backfield and get after Russell Wilson and disturb the passing attack. That's number 2. Number 3, another obvious, but this is a problem the Broncos have had against the Raiders, against other teams. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. The Broncos are a better team on paper than the Raiders are in 2023. I'm sorry. Doesn't make me a homer. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true, if I didn't mean it. The Broncos on paper, quarterback included, are a better football team than the Las Vegas Raiders. And if they don't beat themselves, if they don't shoot themselves in the feet with pistols constantly, then they are going to win this football game. What do I mean by not shooting yourself in the foot? I mean, don't commit stupid penalties. Like Garrett Bowles, don't commit holding penalties. Don't commit unsportsmanlike penalties. Don't commit false start penalties, pre-snap penalties. Don't fumble the ball. Don't throw picks. Don't do anything that's going to harm yourself. Let the Raiders beat the Raiders and let the Broncos beat the Raiders. I mean, if you guys disagree, I think the first 2 keys to victory were the most important, but the Broncos have been the Broncos' biggest enemy, especially last year. If they could just not be that, they will win easily going away in week 1. It looks like we have a video queued up from we'll get to it in a second, from Sean Payton talking about the week 1 game. We have Brandon Williams chiming in. Thank you so much, Brandon. Do you think he is going to be on a pitch count? I assume you mean Josh Jacobs. I thought you meant Pookie.
That's a great question. I don't know that we've sat and had that discussion relative to, week 1 pitch count, but it's a really good question. And that's something that's going to come probably as early as before Monday. Man, we're pleased, where we're at right now and how he's progressed and he's gotten in games. And, he is someone that picks things up quickly, but we'll have a balance and not just he's one, but there'll be a few players that we've got to pay attention to that may not have had the volume compared to some other guys. And so I know it's a regular season game, but you still have to have a minutes plan or a plate plan, and we'll have that with him.
So that was in reference to Pookie, who I thought you were talking about. And yeah, it seems like they're going to kind of put maybe one training wheel on Javonte just to not let him jump in the deep end. He'll have 9 toes in the water, but they'll make him keep one out. He'll play a healthy amount of snaps, but you're going to see a lot of Samaje Perine, and you're going to see a lot of Jaleel McLaughlin. In terms of Jacobs, I can't answer that to the best of my knowledge because I don't know the inner workings of the Raiders like I do the Broncos, or at least I try to. I would assume as long as he's in football shape, Jacobs, he knows the offense. He's, one of, if not the NFL's best running back. He was the rushing champ in 2022. I don't see a pitch count. He is their offense. He makes that entire thing go. I wouldn't be shocked if they gave him the ball 30 times next Sunday, to be honest with you. GLP, Gary Palmer, dropping in 1999 super. Thank you so much, Gary, on this solo edition of the MHH pod. Gary goes, thanks for carrying the ball, Zach. Go Broncos and Buckham. Absolutely, Gary. I love carrying the ball. And like Melvin Gordon, unlike him, I don't fumble the ball when I'm carrying it. Low-hanging fruit, but I had to get it in there. Thank you so much, Gary, for your contributions. As always, you know we appreciate you. One of the pinnacle members of the MHH podcast. Big drop here from Deanna Hendry, Lady D, the Lady D bomb, as it's come to be known. Thank you so much, so much, Deanna, for that $50 super. Evening, Zach. I'm super excited about this season. I agree with stopping Josh Jacobs. I am positive Broncos win. MHH for life. That's what it comes down to, man. For seriously, I say that with full sincerity, and I say that with full not being disingenuous. That's the game for Denver, is stopping Josh Jacobs. If you can limit him to 3 yards a carry, don't let him run for 5-6 yards a clip. Don't let him pop off in the red zone, 2-3 touchdowns. You can keep him in check and force Jimmy G, bad foot and all, to beat you at home in Denver with a raucous crowd. First game of the Sean Payton era. I'm very confident they win this, and I think you are as well, Deanna. So again, thank you so much. This is what Scott says here. This is one of the keys to victory, and I agree. Man up Surtain on Adams and sell out to stop Jacobs. Adams will get his, but not enough to win if Jacobs is shut out. Absolutely. Yeah. Devontae Adams is such a good receiver. You're not going to ever shut him down completely. He's going to have some catches. He's going to have some yards. He might even have a touchdown. He did work PS2 a little bit last year, but if you can limit that, if you can just not let him take the top off and not let him single-handedly beat you, that's a major win. And if you shut down Josh Jacobs and put the pressure on Jimmy G, who will wilt in the face of that pressure, by the way, even if Devontae Adams gets the ball, it won't be enough to make up the difference from what they're losing with their ground game. So absolutely, Scott, stop Jacobs by all means necessary. And then I think PS2 can survive on Devontae. C. Chang, is Jerry Jeudy still questionable? As the Broncos haven't released an updated injury report for week 1 yet, C. Chang. But Jerry Jeudy did do side work during Thursday's practice, and that's a good sign. The Broncos have also released several receivers, and they haven't made a big move there. They just cut Michael Bandy off the practice squad. Every indication the Broncos have made since Judy's injury has led me to believe that they don't see it as a serious issue at all, and I would not be shocked. In fact, I'm kind of expecting Jerry Jeudy to show up in week 2 to face the Commanders for the Broncos. So questionable, highly questionable. I would not expect him to play week 1. I'd be surprised if they rushed him back, but he should be back by week 2. And I feel very strongly about that. Gregory Vandeland, $49.99 super. Thank you so much. No comment, but just showing the love, showing his contribution and his gratitude. And I'm trying to show mine, Gregory. That's so amazing. Thank you so much. If you have any comment, question, concern, consideration, please drop it in the chat and I'll be sure to get to it. Thank you again. Deuce from New Orleans. Good to see you, Deuce. Deuce says we can stop Jacobs by keeping him on the bench if our offense can sustain long drives consistently. Great point. And this is so true. There's 2 ways to beat a really good player, like a Mahomes or a Jacobs or whatever. You can just man up and stop him physically on the field, or you can keep him off the field, as you're talking about here. And it's 1,000% correct. I probably should have said that in my keys to victory for this game, but it kind of goes without saying. We want the Broncos offense to put together 10, 11, 12-minute long scoring drives and not field goals or hopeful field goals with their new kicker, Will Lutz. We want touchdowns in the Sean Payton era, in the second year of Russell Wilson. So yeah, that's another great way to beat Jacobs, is don't allow him to touch the football or control it as much as you can. And the great thing about that as well, let's say you're the Broncos offense and you open the game with 2 10-minute scoring drives. You go up 14-0 and it's the second quarter already. For the Raiders, their game flip or their game script, is out of the window. It is flipped completely. At 14-0, they can't run the ball. They can't establish that run. They're going to be forced to pass more than they want to. They're going to be forced to lean on Jimmy G more than they probably want to, and that would be a good thing, a really good thing for the Broncos defense. All right, let's Let's see what else we got here, Scott. See anything? I'm still looking for. Um, Here's a good shot by David. We have to score more than 17. Yeah, again, something that goes without saying and something that haunted us from the Nathaniel Hackett era. The Broncos cannot ever get over that 16 or 17 point mark. But last time we saw them play, they put up 41, shut out the Rams 41-0. I think we're going to see more than 17 points. And I would be surprised if the Raiders reach 17 on this Broncos defense. That's my hot take for this game. Okay, what do we got here? Inbred Dinner Wolves, 4th generation. That's a very interesting username. Appreciate you, Inbred Dinner Wolves, who goes, our running back and quarterback depth is much improved considering how many one-score games we lost. We will have a better season. Yeah, the people who hate on Denver, the national media, the critics, all the circle that we talk about, they look at the Broncos record. And yeah, they were 5-12. They were pretty bad last year. But if you watch the games, which they don't do, and you understand the context of those defeats, you would see the Broncos were in every game, or they were fighting in every game. They took Kansas City to the limit twice. They clawed and fought their way in both those games. And they had, as you said here, a lot of close margin losses. And the hope is, you mentioned the running back depth and the quarterback, but you mentioned the coaching difference, or you hope the coaching difference could be the missing link, the thing that takes the Broncos from a one-loss game to a 3-point victory. That's what Sean Payton brings, is having that elite savvy on the sideline. And I think just him alone, just his presence and his acumen and the culture that he's instilling in Denver, he'll be good for at least on his own 2 more victories. My opinion. My username is an American Dad Inside Joke. Got you. I've seen some of American Dad. I'm a much bigger Family Guy fan. I think that's the funniest of those similar shows like Futurama and the Cleveland Show. But American Dad's pretty funny. I'm a big Seth MacFarlane fan. I think he's freaking hilarious. So appreciate you hopping in and clarifying. This is something that resonates with me as well. Clutchmaster 59 just want Denver to prove Nick Wright wrong. Yeah, that would be nice. Unfortunately, we fully think he's biased, and we know he's biased. He's a Kansas City fan, and he says things intentionally to ruffle the Broncos fans' feathers, but couldn't say anything last year. He predicted a down season, and the Broncos had a down season. He's still talking crap, I'm sure. I don't know, Clutchmaster, if he said anything new, but everything that comes out of his mouth is the same anti-Broncos fecal matter that I don't pay much attention to. I'm confident. I know, in fact, that the Broncos will prove him wrong, and he'll be eating. If he's a man, if he has any sort of credibility, and if he has any sort of honor, he'll be eating a ton of crow a few months from now. This is definitely true from Scott here. Easiest way to get back in Nick Wright, change the channel. Yeah, hit him where it hurts. Don't even give him the ratings. Don't give him the clicks. Don't give him the conversation. I like to say that a lot. Like, I don't even want to give them my energy, my time, my words. Just ignore him and let him do his thing. We know the truth. Yeah, if you tune in to watching me crow, he still wins. Yeah, but it'll feel better watching him eat it. If people are gonna watch him, at least watching him eat crow is more entertaining. But we'll see how that shakes out. Scott, did you see anything going through the chat? We're at about 28 and a half minutes. We'll be on for about 15 more or so. Again, it could be a shorter podcast tonight, different podcast, me being solo with Chad unavailable for the evening. He'll be back tomorrow, though, so normal show tomorrow night, but it could be a little truncated today. I'm just going through the chat. If you guys have any questions, comments, again, get them in, and I'll do my best to answer each and every single one. Sean Williams says, there's no doubt in my mind, if we dominate the trenches, we will win this game going away. I'm not scared. I'm pretty much not scared of any part of the Raiders except for Josh Jacobs and Max Crosby. They don't scare me at all. McDaniels as a coach doesn't scare me. Jimmy G is a joke, is a clown to me. I mean, their offensive line is pretty solid, but it's Jacobs and then Max Crosby, and then that's it. If they just, like you say here, Sean, if they hold the trenches and they just do their job, they don't beat themselves, and they play smart, consistent smash mouth football, they will win this game by 2 possessions. Not even a hot take. It's just logic at this point. Thank you, Sean. Scott makes an interesting point. Might as well talk about it since we don't have much to go over this evening. It looks like the Cowboys right tackle, Terrence Steele, got an $86.8 million contract extension. That seems like a lot for someone like Terrence Steele. It's not a Cowboys podcast, but I did cover them briefly a few years ago, and I watched Terrence Steele's rise from I think he was a UDFA or a very late round draft pick, and then he became a swing starter. Then he became the injury replacement starter, and then a full-time starter. Then he gets 86.8. And as Scott says, and it's absolutely true, the McGlinchey contract doesn't seem so bad now. Mike McGlinchey, to me, is a much more proven tackle, came from a better system in San Francisco. I get the injury concerns and some of his blocking shortcomings, but that's definitely reassuring for any Broncos fan who was wringing their hands over Mike McGlinchey's contract. Deanna Hendry, another big showing of generosity, $50 super. Thank you so much, Lady D. You are seriously amazing. It's astounding what you do each and every day. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Offensive line must show up all season, Deanna says. Still a little worried about Bowles. Sick of media coverage negative on Wilson and the Broncos. MHH for life. I talked about this on Thursday's show, Deanna. I'm so used to the Russell Wilson slander and the negative coverage of him and the Broncos. It doesn't even affect me anymore. It's like dirt off my shoulder. If the Broncos want to change that, they know what to do. Russ knows what to do. Sean Payton knows what to do. Win football games. And even though when they do win these games, they're still going to have the sect of the national media that says, oh, the Broncos are cooking, but is it in spite of Russ? Is Sean Payton not getting the most out of him? We're still going to hear that, but it doesn't matter. We all just want the Broncos to win games and let everything take care of themselves. But I agree with you. The O-line must show up. Not just all season, but definitely in week 1. Because again, Max Crosby is going to be out there, and as Scott illustrated, he seems to feast exclusively on Broncos offensive linemen. They got to be on their toes for all 60 minutes. I want to take this really quickly from Michael Ronquillo. Zach, who will score the Broncos' first touchdown? I love questions like these. They're so fun to think about and predict. Oh man, I'm gonna say it comes on a running play. Just to be realistic, I'm picturing the Broncos opening drive. I think they will have an opening drive touchdown, by the way, against Vegas next Sunday. So I'm picturing that opening drive in my head. And I see the Broncos completing pass plays to get down near the red zone. But once they're there, how fitting would it be to give the ball to Pookie? Let's say it's 1st and goal from the 3. You give the ball to Pookie, who comes back after a horrible knee injury, suffered against the Raiders, by the way, last season, and gets into the end zone from 3 yards out. Broncos up 6-0. About to be 7-0. That is how, in real time, I envision the Broncos' first series and the Broncos' first score. So I'm going to say Pookie just for the irony, and because Pookie, of all people on this Broncos squad, deserves that tutty. Thank you, Michael. Clutchmaster says Russell Wilson scramble would be the Broncos' first touchdown. Scott says Justin Simmons would be the Broncos' first touchdown. That would be great. If a pick 6 off Jimmy G was the Broncos' first score, I'll take it. I don't care how it happens. Pookie, Russ, Simmons, as long as the Broncos get into the end zone, I'm good. Inbred dinner wolves. I'd like to see Russ make Sherman eat crow. I'm sick of his trash talk again. I lump Richard Sherman in with everyone else in the national media. They say things about Russ and the Broncos because it's trendy, because they know it'll get clicks and engagement and people will talk about it. They know people will jump on that bandwagon and say, yeah, Russ sucks. The Broncos suck. Let's ride. High knees, danger witch. It's just the low-hanging fruit, and it's the fad in the media, and it will be until the Broncos give them a reason not to talk that smack anymore. Dan Wilkett says the first TD will be Brandon Johnson. That's a pretty bold take. I like it, though. Brandon will certainly be getting a lot of run in that Broncos offense, and especially in that first game with Judy more than likely out with the hamstring injury. Michael Ronquillo says PS2 will get the Broncos first score. And Dan says, or Marvin Mims. Two bold takes because there's so many people ahead of both of them on the depth chart, but I don't care where it comes from. Mims, Johnson, Russ, Simmons, Pookie, get into the end zone, step on the Raiders' necks. I want to see a dominant victory. I don't care if it's one point or 40 points, but I want to just see, if preferable, if possible, I want to see them just take their aggression out. They're sick of the trash talk. They've been hearing it. They want to exercise those demons. Do it all up and down the Raiders for 60 minutes. Take it to them and don't let up. Yeah, Scott says, Jeff Legwald, the Broncos beat writer for ESPN, calls Sanders a possible answer to Travis Kelce, talking about Drew Sanders, the Broncos rookie inside linebacker. I love that Legwald went out on that limb. He's usually a little more even-keeled, but he did put possible in there, and possible is the key word. Because you're not going to shut down Travis Kelce. Like Scott was talking about with Devontae Adams, you're not going to shut down these players and hold them to no catches for no yards and no touchdowns. They are going to get theirs. But there's a difference between shutting them down and letting them go absolutely crazy. I mean, in years past against VJ, Travis Kelce would literally not even be covered down the field. I think they'll fix that. They'll be covering Kelce. And if they put Sanders on him, he's the most athletic and physically gifted linebacker Denver has had in 5 years at the bare minimum. If there's anyone on this Broncos team who can shut down Kelce or limit Kelce, it is Drew Sanders. I agree with that. I'm just going through some of the comments. Kevin Gray says the hate machine is going to have to eat that crow. They'll eat some of it, but they're going to leave. I'm telling you now, mark my words, September 3rd, 7:01 Mountain Time, even when the Broncos win a game. The Broncos can win 50-0 against the Raiders, let's say, in week 1. A majority or some of the national media and some of the haters will be saying, you know what, maybe we were wrong about Denver. Maybe we were wrong about Russ. Maybe they are a better team. But I guarantee you there's going to be a sect of media and fans and trolls who will find and nitpick that 50-0 Broncos victory. I guarantee you. They'll say, well, Russ only had 3 touchdowns. He missed a 4th. Or, well, Sean Payton punted all in the 4th quarter. There always is going to be that clapback against the Broncos. It's that Denver bias. I don't know why it exists. I don't know really how far back it's gone or the root of it, but it's definitely apparent. Doesn't matter, though. I don't care what they say. Let them hate. Talk what they want to talk about. Say what you want to say. The Broncos winning football games, like John says here. I just want I want to win. Go Broncos. That's all that matters. That's the only thing that matters, is winning football games. All right, we're at 37 minutes. I have time. I'll take a few more before I start winding down and doing the calls to action. Michael's out for this evening. Appreciate having you around, Michael, for the podcast. As always, we'll see you tomorrow when it'll be a more normal show with Chad and I in the saddle. Matt Henry, going to the week 2 game against Washington. What are your thoughts on that game? Well, selfishly, we had the MHH fantasy draft, and I did pick up Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin from Washington. So I'll have a little bit of different investment for that, but they're a team the Broncos should beat. I mean, let's be really clear about that. Their best player is a receiver. One of their best players is a receiver. They have a really good defensive line, but to me, they took a step back at quarterback, going from Taylor Heineke to Sam Howell. I don't know how ready he is yet. I'm not the biggest believer in Ron Rivera. I think he's like another Jeff Fisher, where he'll keep you afloat. He'll keep you relevant until December, but he'll never get you over that hump. I'm not scared of the Commanders' secondary or their linebackers. That is a game. That is one of the few games on this schedule where I can confidently say the Broncos are a better team and the Broncos should beat them. So hope you have fun at the game, Matt. I think you'll be seeing a Denver win. You should be seeing a Denver win. You better be seeing a Denver win. Again, if the Broncos want to be that playoff team, they want to win 10 games this year, it starts with beating the teams you're supposed to beat, the inferior teams. And the Commanders in my opinion, fall in that bucket. What else? I'll take a few more. Gilster says, break the stupid streaks. Let them hate. Go Broncos. Absolutely. Let them talk. Let them talk. I don't care. Just let them hate. That's why we have the expression. That's why we say it. It's not just a t-shirt. It's the truth. Let them say what they want. The Broncos are going to win 10 football games this year. I'm very confident in saying that. Inbred says, this is probably the last one I'll take. Unless, Scott, we have anything else that you see? All right, I think we're good. Inbred says, at this point, I'd be happy with a 9-8 season, more wins than losses, and I'm happy. I get that. And it would be, oh, man, I don't know if it would qualify as a successful season under Sean Payton. Successful is so subjective. Each and every person has a different definition of that. Successful to me, I think, considering the investments you've made for Peyton and Russell Wilson and the money you've spent, would be a wild card berth. 10-7, make the playoffs as a wild card. Even if you lose in the first round, that would be a plus season in Denver. But I can see if your definition of success in Bread is 9-8, it would definitely be a lot better than what the Broncos have been. That would be the Broncos' best mark since they went 9-7 in 2016 with Trevor Siemian at quarterback. That just to show you how long it's been since we've even entered that stratosphere. So everyone has different definitions. A lot of people are expecting the Broncos to make the playoffs. A lot are hoping the Broncos make the playoffs. And some are even thinking that they won't even be competitive this year. Everyone has different opinions. 9-8 would be my bare minimum floor for Denver. If they stay healthy or as healthy as they can be from here on out, and Russ takes that step forward, I'm expecting at least a 9-8 record. Dan Wilkett, good job on the podcast tonight. You rocked it. Appreciate you so much, Dan. Yeah, it's not. Some of you guys might have appreciate you, David. Some of you guys might have been following me for a few years. I used to do live shows 4 or 5 times a week by myself. It's actually really fun just to talk and not have to worry about blowing Chad's ears out with my speech volume. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, but I have so much fun rocking this solo, and it kind of is a little nostalgic for me in a way. If you've watched the old 24/7 Sports podcast, Kevin Gray, great show, guys. DB for life, MHH for life, and Buckham. Appreciate you, Kevin. Sonny Staley says, I'm going to just take some comments here really quickly. Sonny Staley says, considering what we have done the last 6 years, I'll take 9-8. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not the Pat Bowlen standard. The Broncos have been so far from that standard that people don't even remember that anymore. But 9-8 would be the bare minimum I would take to qualify the season as a success. I'm going to just address this. I mean, I'll always address, I guess this is criticism at me. So String Guy says, Zach, it is funny to me that you have been the number one guy saying we don't need Cook or Jacobs is the guy most afraid of Jacobs. So I've been saying the Broncos don't need them, but the Broncos should still be afraid of them. Well, in the case of Jacobs, String Guy, I mean, this is, I think, pretty apparent, pretty common sense, but Josh Jacobs is the Broncos or is the Raiders' best player. I'm far and away, at least on offense, and he makes their entire team go. They don't have anyone but Josh Jacobs. Even though he's a better running back, I think, sorry for saying, than Javonte Williams, the Broncos have more people than just one guy. It never would have made fiscal sense. It never would have made sense from a personnel standpoint. I would have loved to have Josh Jacobs in a Broncos uniform. Loved it. I wouldn't even mind paying him $13 million for 1 year, whatever he's getting. But you already have Pookie. You already had Samaje Perine. You have Jaleel McLaughlin showing out. If you didn't have those guys in the picture, and Jacobs wanted to come to Denver, I'd be all for it. I'd be saying, go out and get him, make it happen, open the checkbook, show him who's boss, George Payton. But they just did not need Josh Jacobs. They did not need Dalvin Cook. My opinion was it's a want. Everyone wants those guys, but it's not a need for Denver. And I'm sticking true to that conviction. Victor Ferrer says, what's up, Zach? What's up, Victor? Stu McPeak says, Zach, you rock as always. Watched you way back when you were solo before MHH. Yes, Stu, you are an OG. You are the OG of OGs. Again, some of you have been rocking with me for a while. I mean, years and years ago, and definitely appreciate that. It's very humbling, but it's always fun to do these live shows and get back onto that solo vibe. All right, I'm gonna take a few more comments. We're at 44 minutes. I'm sure Scott wants to get out of here. String guy says, enjoy your hope you're right, beat Raiders. Yeah, I selfishly, not to gloat, I hope I'm right too. But I think we agree on one thing, that the Broncos should beat the Raiders, and I think the Broncos will beat the Raiders. Jeremy Sean says paying a running back isn't worth it 95% of the time. That's part of the reason. Now, I always led my comments with that. When y'all would ask me, should the Broncos get Josh Jacobs? Should the Broncos get Dalvin Cook? Should the Broncos make a move for, Saquon Barkley, whoever? I said they can't do it. They can't do it fiscally. It would not make sense at this time when even Jonathan Taylor is struggling to get a multi-year deal. It's just a bad time for running backs, and the Broncos were wise not to partake in that downfall. I think, though, Scott, I think we should wind it down. I think we're good. Yeah, that was a tremendous episode. It flew, guys. 45 minutes, even solo. It just flies when I'm having fun. I can't speak for Scott. I assume he's having fun, but it goes really fast. Appreciate you all. If you haven't done so, please follow us on Twitter. I guess he is having fun because he's dancing now. Follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Follow Scott at Scout Kennedy, and also follow Chad. He'll be back tomorrow night at Chad and Jensen. If you guys want some MHH merch, check it out at mhhmerch.com. We have Buckham merch. We have hats. We have everything you need for the Broncos this season. Also, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Be sure you're liking that page and following that page. If you haven't and you're on Instagram, follow us at Mile_High_Huddle. And if you haven't done so, guys and gals, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts for your chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, I'm begging you, do it for your boy. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. I think we'll have an updated Super Chat ranking on tomorrow's show, Scott. Okay, well, we'll get into that when Chad's back in the swing, guys. I believe we covered every super. Try to get to every question. It's tough when you're by yourself. But I'm going to let you guys go. Have a great rest of your holiday weekend Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow night. Again, Chad will be back in the saddle. I think we have Broncos for breakfast in the morning too. Broncos for breakfast with Scott and Nick in the morning, and your boys back tomorrow evening. We'll see you then. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.